Hello, everybody. I'm Alain from the Belgian Federation. Dirk is also from the Federation here, and we are really happy to welcome, and not only welcome Kārlis. So Kārlis is the organizer of the competition of the BBPO 2026 in Laragne, which will start on the 15th of August. And the Federation, the Belgian Federation, will organize all the side events, will help Kārlis, and we can support all the pilots in our best way possible to make a great week all together. So today is one of the first session we will have to train you and coach you about different aspects. Today will be all what you need to know about the region of Chabre mountain and Laragne, about weather, everything, and maybe some tips about flying in Laragne, and also some really important information about airspaces in Laragne. And the next session, I will project it later after Kārlis' session, we'll have in 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks, on the 30th of July, a session about, a coaching session about what is a day of competition at the BBPO? What's happening? What is the checklist you need to have in mind for every aspect of the competition, and how to set up your instruments? Okay, so Kārlis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan. So this is a talk prepared for the valley flow systems and meteo in the region, and focused on the local meteorology and aerology, so kind of ignoring the global systems, meaning that if we have completely calm weather conditions, no winds forecasted from meteo meaning it's the global system that doesn't affect, is not affected by local systems, and local is everything that is mountain level, valley flow level, and how it changes throughout the day. So let's see if I can click next somehow on this thing. How do we do that? Let me. It doesn't want to go next. Space? No. Yeah. There. All right. So to understand the micrometeorology, meaning where we actually fly, we start with macro to local to micro. And these three pictures kind of represent that. When we forecast for an event, or any flying cross-country day, we always look at the whole Europe as a minimum. Europe all the way to UK, from the Atlantic down to Mediterranean, the whole Alps. We don't just check a forecast for Chabre. We look at what all the systems does around, from the higher ones down to lower ones. And to understand how it works, it's kind of the basics that most of you have learned when you start the paragliding and about meteo, right? The sun comes up in the morning, it heats the mountain peaks first, and that creates a local low pressure above the mountains, meaning that there's less relative air pressure on top of a mountain because it's hotter and air rises, and all the surrounding air, the high pressure, is being pushed towards the low. It kind of replaces the lower pressure of the air. That's why valley flows will always flow towards the mountain, to the highest peaks or the highest mountains nearby, and in the evenings it flows back to the sea. So it goes, because sea is our flattest lowest point, and then it goes towards the mountain peaks. That's the basics of it, and that's how every mountain works in the world, and that's why we have the valley breeze and the mountain breeze, or the katabatic anabatic. So the air will always go, once the sun starts heating, air will move from the oceans, from the seas, towards the mountain peaks. And in the evening, as the sun goes down, mountain peaks are higher up. They cool down quicker than the flats or the seas, and the system reverses. That's the basics that most of you, I'm sure, are aware. And here's an example of Alps on the right, and Taiwan, a relatively small island in ocean in Asia. Taiwan has 4,000 meters in the middle for the mountain heights, the center spine. And Taiwan is a beautiful example because it has the high alpine mountains, not as high as we have in Europe, but not far from it, and the sea right next to it, or ocean. So same as in Taiwan or the Alps, you have the local low pressure or the hotter air.
We lost Kārlis, I think. Kārlis, can you hear us?
Yeah,
okay,
I can.
You had just 10 seconds of cut.
Where did I? So I'll rewind a bit.
Starting
So
with that picture, just so you started with that picture, right?
Yeah. So we have the two areas. It's on the right is the Alps, on the left is the Taiwan. And the reason I'm comparing the two is because the Taiwan is a relatively small island and an easy comparison to it. In the middle of it, Taiwan has a mountain range that goes up to 4,000 meters, and surrounded it, and the island is by water, which is always colder and local high pressure. And Alps is kind of similar. You have the flatlandish places around in France and Germany. Down low you have the sea and the Italian flats. So all the air masses on both sides are moving towards the mountains. And in Alps, that's why you have a southerly component in Bassano in Italy. Switzerland tends to be northerly component, and in France, depends where. Down low near Nice, you're going to have southerly flow. Around where we are, throughout the day, the westerlies will take over eventually. And so on. Annecy tends to be northerly, but that's kind of local plus global system for that region. So we will talk roughly about what I mean by local is this orange area, even though Chabre is kind of in the middle of it. But what affects Chabre is all this region from Geneva down to Nice and all the way west of sort of the first flats, the Rhone Valley, where the Mistral wind comes in quite on regular basis. And then when you zoom in a bit more and more, then you can see where Chabre is in the orange circle. Where do we have the annotation tool? This is getting drawing. That's Chabre down there. Yeah. So even though we're concerned about this little takeoff area, we're looking at the whole southern French Alps, sort of, that whole area, to be able to forecast for it and understand why things happen here the way they are. There's an animation here. Should come up. So we have three we have three main systems that causes the valley flow locally. We have the red is the Alps, the higher Alps, because we're kind of technically on the foothills of Alps. We are Alps, but we're the smaller Alps. Down south, we have the Mediterranean Sea, and on the west, we have the French flats. They're not flat, but for as far as we're concerned, they're flatter than our region. As another animation as we go closer to the Chabre. So the reason Chabre doesn't get south wind straight off the bat in the morning, we kind of have southeast, is that we have three physical blocks. And air moves with a route of least resistance, right? Think of it as a river flowing and you have rocks or trees in it, right? So these mountain ranges south of Chabre are the first blocks that doesn't allow the south wind to come directly to the mountain. And that forces it to go through the valleys. And we have the westerly blocks as well. So the western wind, which wants to come in, because the Alps is on the east of us, and the flattish areas is on the west. The west is also blocked because the mountain range there doesn't allow it to really come in. So Chabre is kind of protected from the main valley winds or the main wind systems that wants to come to Alps, and they are funneled through these main valleys. Especially early in the day, these are the valleys that will come. So through the Cisteron from the south, and then up near D, the westerly comes in, and up north from Grenoble, there's a big opening, so that creates the northwesterly flow. And then when you zoom in closer to Chabre, you can see the valley flows, how they come out around the Chabre area itself. And the reason I spend all this time talking about the macro level or the higher level is that this is what influenced why we have locally the southeasterly system marked by the yellow thingy there, and that on the near the col of Chabre, west of Chabre, there's already southwesterly one to come in every morning. That's the westerly system that wants to come in throughout the day. And on a thermic day, without any meteo winds influence, the west will always win. It starts southeast in the morning, but the westerly comes in and beats the southeast, and we have westerly flow in Chabre by, depending on the day and a lot of different things, but roughly between 2 to 4 p.m., we're going to have westerly flow on the takeoff. Because the Alps is on the east, Flats is on the west, and eventually Alps is hot enough, and the local southeasterly system becomes too weak and gets taken over. And there's more detailed valley flow picture on the left there, how the actual local flow goes. And there's two things to think about valley flow to make it, to understand it simpler, is that the wind flows opposite of the river. Rivers we all seen. We know that river starts somewhere in the mountain and goes down to the sea, right? And the river always finds the same principle. It's the route of least resistance. So it will follow down through the valleys down to the sea eventually. Valley flow does the same, just opposite. It goes from the sea through the little valleys as it can. Every mountain that blocks it redirects the flow. So there's a detailed picture of the valley flows that happens every day there. And we have the Aspre mountain, or the boomerang, or the banana looking mountain sort of north of Chabre, and that's the end of where the southerly system can get to. And on the right you can see that you have that local orangey thing, that's the local southeast we saw before, and the westerly system, and the northerly system, which comes from Grenoble. So we have three main systems here every day for Chabre specifically. In the morning, you have the southeasterly that wants to come, that fights with the westerly system. And the northwesterly also wants to come in because of the opening north. Its northerly system rarely beats the west or south. On a normal thermic day, it doesn't. So what happens is that white line that I've draw there that's the convergence between the three systems. The westerly eventually takes over and moves more east, but from our takeoff time, the first couple hours, this is how it's going to look. And that is why the Chabre Challenge is built this way. It follows the local systems. It helps you to go west early, then the westerly system helps you to go up north, because it's not west straight. It goes from southeast to south to southwest to west. It follows the sun, quite literally, in the local area here. And you can also see that, historically speaking, the thermal map on the left, those are thermal hotspots. And they are on the same line that you see on the right side. They adjust. And the thermal hotspots is just a historic reference of where people fly mostly. Doesn't mean the thermals are not happening somewhere else. It's just where people use it the most. And on the right, you can see you have the convergence zones. You have the main one, but I showed you before, but there's also a lot of local ones that has the same principle, but they're a lot smaller, and the convergences themselves. But it happens for the same reason, that the two valleys merge and they push up to the mountain, and when you fly here, these orange lines is usually where you have cloud streets, because that's where the two winds meet. On the left here, it's even more detailed. And I've been talking about the southerly wind and the westerly flows, but the thing is that wind goes, even though the dominant wind on a normal day in Chabre is southerly flow, starts with southeast, goes to south to southwest. Locally on the north side of Chabre, you'll have northerly wind coming up. In this annotation, I'll try to draw here, because this wind turns in here. It goes as water. If you imagine you're putting water in here, it has to go also up there and up to or Pierre. So yeah, it kind of flashes both directions. Locally here, it's all south, but down here, it will be west-northwest, very locally, right? It's the same for Beaumont or the Antenna Mountain on this one. It starts with easterly flow in the morning, locally. On the top of the wind station, you often see east there in the morning, but it also comes around and turns west before the westerly system gets all the way in. So when you think of valley flows, this is what catches people in mountains. It's like, I took off south and I went a bit and all of a sudden it's north or this or that. It changes based on where the main system moves. And in these pictures, the two main systems, at least around Chabre, this area, you can see on because here's the split. That's your southeasterly system, and this is where the westerly moves in. So on the east side, on this side, east, early in the day, you'll have southeasterly flow. But if you come the same place from this side, especially around Orpierre, you can have westerly flow quite early. And that's just a ridge hop. You go from one ridge to the next. One side you have east, other side on the ground you'll have west. That's the beauty of valley flow and the agony of it. When you think it's going to work on this side and it doesn't, and because one day you went there and it was west, other day it's like, oh no, so it depends on the time of the day. Depends if it's a stable day or a less stable day, meaning higher pressure day or lower pressure day. How quick or slow the thermic activity develops during the day will change how quick or late the local valley flow will change directions. It always starts southeast in the morning, again, without meteor winds. And it's always going to go west and northwest by the time the evening comes. But when the switch happens, that is every day is different. Every day's conditions is different. So that's the hardest bit of all this, even if you understand the theory, is to read the day as it is instead of as it was yesterday or last year you were here, you flew here, it was that. That's the beauty of Chabre. It's very rarely the same conditions that you remember. And you have to adjust quite clearly from day to day. Next slide. There's the image. So that's the wind flow, right? So locally on Chabre, you have, that's somewhere here is the takeoff. You'll have the southwesterly, and even as you come forward to fly westerly towards west, the more west you go, the more west component you will have. By the time you get to the call here, to this area, you can have full west or even northwest, because you're going closer to the westerly system. And locally, like this, what we're looking at here is here. Locally, see, there's a northwesterly system, and this one comes over there sometimes. So you might be thermaling here with northwest. By the time you get here, you're thermaling south, and by the time you get here, you can be thermaling northwest as you get higher. So you're going to have completely different directions in your thermaling track log on a different place on the Chabre itself. And that's completely normal here on any good thermic day. Again, all of this is without meteor. The moment meteor is added to it, everything changes. just micrometeorology, because this will always work like this as long as the sun rises on the east and sets on the west, or if the mountains don't change. As long as the mountains are the way they are, positioned as they are, this will never change no matter what. Locally, the moment you add global meteo, like a strong north wind, strong south wind, or east wind, everything changes because it overwrites the local wind, depending which one is stronger. And here's a flight that I did some years ago, and this flight indicates beautifully what I'm talking about here. And I'm gonna go step by step through a few thermals here and see exactly what I mean. And this is a classic flight to do to use the thermal, use the local flow. So in the morning here, I have complete east down low, and then it switches to southeast as I climb higher. So it's a complete local normal system here. And as I go farther in the flight, that's here is the next one. It's completely southwesterly climb. The angle of the thermals here, the turns is that way. I'm just gonna that. And then as I go completely more west, this one here is west and even northwest as I get higher here on that section. So this one is the flight as I went here, turned around, got a climb, and then here we have southwest down low, complete west, and north west northwest up higher. You extend it towards the west, push a bit into wind. I mean, this day was a bit more stronger westerly, and then you use that westerly to come back and to move up towards the next stage. You can see that in here, oh, there's going to be arrow, there you go. That's already west-southwest, and farther up there, that's completely west, because the local flow, by the time you get here, it will be always west. Again, normal day. And here it's a bit of a southerly flow, because right there, there's a bit of a pocket, and that gives you that extra added to the, and this one is straight through this col or gorge. You have a complete westerly flow down there. Really quite fascinating and beautiful when it works like this here in Chabre. Clear all, okay. And then as you pass 7, you move more north. And that's really cool on this one. Early as I moved up to the flight going north, at this climb here, I have a westerly flow. I extended it up there, came back down, and you have complete northwest coming down. And on this climb here, you can see that's a clear. I started there and I just drifted with it, completely northwest. So this is a classic sort of flight to show you that, and that's a zoomed-in version of the same. This first one is going towards north, and the second one is coming back. And it's not a long time to extend that flight. The bits, it's 30 minutes maybe to go extend into the northwest extension and back, and it's completely switches. And you can also see in this area that early the thermal is a bit more west here, and then it switches to northwest as you get higher. Because down lower, you still have the local influence from the hills under you, because you're low enough to be influenced by the local flow here, and that gives you this section a bit more west. And once you're above it and this stops influencing you, you're completely northwest. What
time was it, Kārlis?
Sorry?
What time was it?
You mean what time of the year, or by the time I got there?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the day, but what hour was it when you came back there?
Yeah, if this is correct, where's my, it doesn't, there. I'm trying to see it in the, this is 4 o'clock, okay. Just after 4 o'clock, this picture. You can see it in the sprint screen. It's right there is the time.
Okay.
This is and this is the point.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's just after 4 o'clock. This picture. So I can actually go back a few slides and see if I can find it. The previous pictures. I need to redo that's an animation, so I have to go back from the start of the animation. So the takeoff is 1 o'clock here in 12:49. This one is at 1:15 or 1:20. Then here is 2 o'clock. The orange dot is the reference for time. So crossing stir is 2:30, roughly. I think it's really blurry. Yeah, roughly 2:30 here. Then on the way back is the 4 o'clock picture. Yeah, so that's the time frame.
Okay.
I can find the flight. You can with a link. It's somewhere on my ICSI contest. I just need to find which one is which date and all that, but I can share with that later.
Okay.
And here's the easiest 100-kilometer flight from Chabre. It's still not that's why it's called Chabre Challenge. It's still a challenge, but it's built on what we talked about here. So you first extend it a bit westerly, push out northwesterly, and then you head east. So you use the easterly flow to push west. As it switches to southwest-west, you go north. By the time you get to the northerly part, you're going to have westerly flow as you start heading east. And that's the Chabre Challenge. By every trigger point, basically, every turn point is a trigger point. And that one follows the convergence and local valley flow and it's planned in a way that by the time you get to a certain point in the flight, the valley flow will turn in your favor. So you don't fly headwind, even though you first went west, then you went north, then you went east, but throughout the whole flight, you're never flying headwind. And this is what the boys who fly the 300 and 400, 400 maybe not yet, the big FAI triangles in Europe, they do the same thing. They extend it into certain area before the valley winds start going against them, and then use those valley flows to head to the next section. So what they do is they go out from east of Alps all the way west early in the day, and then by the time the northwesterlies kicks in, they go down to Saint-André, and then use the northwesterly phases to go back up with that's the same principle, just a bigger flight, but it's the same idea. I'm sure you've seen even this year, we've had several 300 plus FAIs happening over this same area. They just start a bit more east than here, east of George there. And there's your valley flows more or less for this flight, throughout the flight as you move through it. And the convergence zones for that same flight. And you can see there's one area that doesn't have a convergence zone, and that's where people tend to land out, because everything till that point is super nice and easy. So roughly till Aspr is very nice and easy. This is kind of the first difficult bit, and then this is where people tend to get in trouble, bum out, and the reason is that you have to slow down at Aspr. Climb and make sure, and Aspr can be tricky because it's end of the valley of this valley flow, and if you're just above Aspr, then it's windy and venturi, and the thermals can be kind of messy, and it looks like a nice mountain that you can soar and find a climb, but really you need to soar, get a bit above it, and push out into the valley to get the better climb and less disturbed by the venturi, get to the base, and then move more west, where a lot of people just kind of go straight, try their best, and then usually get stuck here first. That's the real crux of Chabre Challenge, is this area. Once you climb out there and move east, then you're home free, and it's quite relatively speaking, quite easy to get to George. But between Asper and Ven is where people tend to get in trouble. Trouble in the sense you get stuck scratching and land. It's not dangerous trouble. It's just annoying because everybody's above you and flying away, and you're down low scratching. Done that a few times myself early days when I started flying here. And here's your three systems. You have the southerly system, the westerly, and the northerly, and they meet there on those ridgelines. That's our micrometeorology of Chabre. And there's a QR code that I hope still works for the Chabre challenge if you want this task in your instruments, but it's available publicly, I think. Or at least if you sign up on the email list, you should get the link. Or we can throw it in the group later on here somewhere, so you can download the Chabre challenge. And then here is a few things for sort of forecasting ideas. When I ask people, especially in competitions, we have people say, "Oh, I saw in the forecast this and that," and then I ask people. First thing I asked is, "What model did you check?" And if a person tells me windy, that tells me everything I need to know, because windy has about, at the top of my head, 9 different models, and each of them has different results depending on the day. And then you have Météo Parapente or a bunch of other applications, and each of those applications takes a raw model, computes it to their own liking, and presents you with data. What you should know that each model has a sort of a resolution, like we have screen resolutions, and it's basically a grid, how precisely they're trying to forecast. So there's this ECM01 that is 1 kilometer resolution. And these are old numbers, so take it with a grain of salt. GFS is 22, and the difference between the ECMF, the first one, it's a really hard name, is that it's really hard for us to reliably forecast small grid. So we're trying to be very accurate, because 1 kilometer is trying to forecast local valley flows. And that change is based if you have a shadow about the valley or not. Where GFS kind of ignores that there's mountains at all, and he just talks about how this big system is going to move around and doesn't really give two thoughts about the valley flows down low. And then there's everything in between, different levels. And the models are one of the hardest things to figure out. You might use Météo Parapente, let's say in Lake Garda, and it's amazing. It works for the wind. Not so great for the clouds. It's not very accurate for clouds. Météo Blue is really good in Lake Garda for clouds, but neither of those two be using Chabre because they're just not reliable for the region. And one way when you travel and you have no clue which is the best, you take any of these models and check what they tell you about right now, and then look out the window and have a look what it is actually happening. And if one of them is showing you accurate for what you see now, it's more likely that it will be okay for the next 6 hours or 12 hours. It's not a guarantee, but it's a one way how to figure out which of those models work best for the area you're in. And it changes across the world. Every place has the models that are better for the other places, and it's tricky. If you don't live in a place and regularly check, then ideally find somebody who does. But micrometeorology is a tricky thing in general, because we have books for general meteorology on universities you can learn, but micro we don't have much, because it's just us paragliders and hang gliders who care about it. Nobody else really flies in this area. So we have very, very little written knowledge about this level of precision of micrometeorology. So it's a tricky one to learn.
Kārlis, so you mean that even in standard condition in Laragne, you don't have one model that you refer to specifically, right?
Yeah. So Jacques, who does our forecasting for competitions, he's regularly using, I don't know, 4 to 6 to 10 models, depending on complexity of the system. And he never ever checks Chabre. He checks Europe as a minimum. Like right now, yesterday we had beautiful systems. If you have a historic replays of what happened yesterday, we have a cold air mass coming from Antarctica, right? The one up north is Antarctica, the cold bit up there. And we had a heat wave from Africa coming up. And we were the sandwich in the middle. So we had a cold air mass coming, sliding down from the top, and hot air here. And it met, and we had a really beautiful thing just here locally between Laragne and Serres. I was coming back home from the campsite to Serres. I live in Serres. And the campsite was still in sun and super hot. And here it was overcast and dark. And I went in a shop and came out. That's about 15 minutes inside of a building. We had a strong south wind. When I went in, by the time I came out, it was strong north. And the north was a lot colder. So that went under all the heat and just built a local nimbus and thunders and rain. It's beautiful. I have an Instagram video, should be still live story that you can look at how it visually looked. So that's the micro. And but that's the effect of a thing that happened between Antarctica and Northern Africa. From Sahara to that for the little 20-kilometer distance between Laragne and Serres. It's welcome to the complex world of micrometeorology, I guess. So that's the first step, right? If you want to figure out a model which works for the area that you're going to go to for your holidays, check the current weather with the forecast, current weather outside of the window with the forecast for current time, and you'll have some idea which is accurate or not. You always want to check for large systems nearby. Like for Chabre, we have Mistral. Mistral is just a name for a wind. It goes from north down to south in the Rhone Valley, west of Chabre. And that's very predictable. That system, when it comes, there's no surprises. But if you're only going to check a pin on top of Chabre, you will never see the wind nearby. And big systems has their own minds. They are forecasted to be in this angle or radius or whatever speeds, but they can change their mind and change the angle of touch. And it can be from perfectly nice 10, 15K north wind, and you can take off and fly, to 35 or 40 or 50, depending on the system strength. So when you look for wherever you're going to fly in your region or your takeoff area, you need to see what's going around you. What is the forecast for the big systems to move? That's why yesterday from Antarctica to Northern Africa is what affected us down here, which is quite large scale. I mean, another example of the same, we had a heat wave a couple of years back, and Jacques couldn't figure out why it's happening so much, and the source was opposite the southern pole, the other one down low, all the way opposite of the planet, moving up through the whole of Africa and moving all the air up. So sometimes it's so complex that you have to look at the whole globe. It's literally the butterfly effect, sort of, in a sense. So yeah. If it's simple, everybody's a meteorologist and everybody can figure out the weather. When it gets a bit tricky, that's where the skill comes in place. And the next important thing is you always want to check wind at altitude, different altitudes, because we're going to fly at different altitude. You know, you might take off at 1300, the cloud base might be 3000. Altitude matters to us. And I would say check up to 5000. Because if it's really, really strong at 5 and your cloud base is forecasted at 3.5, that might influence your flight at that height. If a 4K is high and you think, I'm never going to get there, but about from 4 to 3, that still can come down to your level and influence how the air will be. So wind direction and speed as vertically is as important as locally on the ground. Because if the wind directions is a big difference in angle, so you have south and north opposite, that's incredible turbulence if you get next to it, to a point that you can just lose your wing as you reach, you're perfectly fine at 2,500, you go to 3, at 3,1 you lose your wind if the wind speeds are strong enough at that height. So you also want to check that. Also, you can use that for cross country if you have certain wind speeds at one altitude, and at higher altitude you have different wind speeds. So you climb at certain altitude just to go one direction and then climb higher to go another, to use the wind in your advantage. So you also want to check that. And cloud cover, of course, I mean, if it's covered, it's no thermals. So for me, I'm lazy. I don't want to check weather every day nonstop for 30 minutes. So all I do is I check wind and clouds. That's my first thing that I do. If one or the other is too much, we're done. It's over. And then if both are good, then I start going into other things. And then another simple rule of thumb is pressure, temperature, humidity. If everything else is equal and one of these changes, there's a simple rules to think about. If everything else is equal and the pressure is different, so on the high pressure days, the thermals will be more aggressive. On lower pressure days, they will be more friendly. And the way my simple mind understands that is that high pressure is basically somebody pushing down on you and you're trying to go up and you're fighting each other. That's what the high pressure is. That's simply for me. But when the pressure is released a bit, the thermals can rise nicer and they don't have to fight, so the edges won't be as aggressive. Then temperature stability through altitude, the more stable the lapse rate, right? And if you have 0 degrees at 5,000 and you have 25 degrees on the bottom, it's a very slow lapse rate. But if you have 30 degrees on the bottom at 1,000 meters and 0 at 2,500, then you're probably going to have storms. So temperature makes a difference. Higher temperature tends to be more stable. Like if the hot days over time becomes not nice, because thermals tend to be more aggressive in heat waves, but they go higher. And then humidity, the more humid air, the more pleasant the thermals tends to be. The more dry the air, the more aggressive the thermals tends to be. There is some chemistry reaction thing, the reason for it, that I can't remember. I've been explained that so many times, but you can Google it, find it out. There's something about air interacting with how water release heat. That's what creates the difference. But the simple principles are higher pressure, more aggressive thermals, lower pressure, nicer thermals, more humidity, nicer thermals, less humidity, more aggressive thermals. Also, humidity changes the cloud base. More humidity tends to have lower, less humidity, higher, and then the temperature differences. These are simple rules of thumb. There you go. That's the talk.
Thank you, Kārlis. Maybe before, I guess you will talk about airspaces a bit just after, but maybe questions first about that. So people shoot. If you have any question in French, in Dutch, don't hesitate, please.
Oh.
Looks like it was quite clear.
Cricket. Really? Was it that clear?
Can you give some examples of temperature difference?
Examples of temperature difference.
Yes, so what makes a good day, what makes a bad day for temperature at a normal day at the base?
Yeah, so the lapse rate is it's the general rule. It also a bit depends where you are. So it's every place is a bit different. They will have local specifics. Like the general rule was what was it? 1 degree per 100 meters is a nice thermal sort of activity. So that you lose 1 degree Celsius per 100 meters, roughly. And that's the lapse rate, the temperature difference. So if you have 1,000 meters and 20 degrees Celsius and 2,000 meters, 10 degrees Celsius, then you're going to have a nice thermic activity in that section. And if the lapse rate is more than that, then storms are happy to happen because it's too active. And if the temperature changes are slower, then it's more stable. That's the simple rule of temperature differences. Does that explains it? Who was asking that? Yeah.
Is that okay, Peter, for you?
Okay, that's at least that gives a base to compare when it's good, when it's bad to start with. Thanks.
Yeah, it's all of this is very basic. There's, none of it is simple, because they all interact and there are nuances to it. But that's that takes decades to properly understand and keep learning, because I'm still learning. Comparing to Jacques, I'm still a beginner in Meteo. It's all relative.
Hello, Kārlis.
Okay.
Thank you for the explanations. I arrived 15 minutes late, and I was wondering if there is one takeoff or different takeoffs. And I saw that you are showing these maps. If there are different takeoffs, could you please show on the maps where they are, or is there only one?
You mean in Chabre?
Yes, I mean for the competition to come.
Yeah. I'm opening a map. So now I just need to share the screen. You can give her some snacks. I have a cat arrived in the house and wants some food. Yes. Okay, so now let's try to draw annotation. That's green. I should change it to something else. That's green. You can't see. So that's Chabre. No, still green, right? Color red. There we go. So here we have Chabre. Then Monclar is here.
No, you don't share, I think. Yes?
He
yes,
shares,
yes.
but I don't see the...
Yeah, it's good. It's okay. It's okay.
You see the red dots? Disappeared.
Not the dots, but yeah, okay.
There's a dot.
yes, great. Thanks.
All right. So sorry, I'm gonna switch to pen, so it's permanent. There you go. That's Chabre. Is it loading? Yep. I saw it. And then there's Monclar. That's our backup site in the competitions. We only go there if we have no choice, and we have limited options budget-wise to go there because we need to move everybody there, and there's a ski lift.
Okay.
Then there's a takeoff for westerly winds, or northwesterly is Cederon. It's here. There's another option that we rarely use because we'll talk about the airspaces. You'll see it more clearly there.
Straight into the airspace.
There's roughly this whole area. It's updating. I can see that it's not there. There you go. So roughly all that area to the left of the screen is military airspace. And we are allowed to fly there under a certain limit. And if you pass it, this is what we're going to chat about it. So we rarely go west. But Monclar, we've gone a few times. It depends on the conditions. But yeah, our primary takeoff for the competition is Chabre. But for local, if you're hanging around and if you like to do hike and fly, you can hike this mountain here. There's a nice takeoff for evening flying. Bormont, if you want to go early and you don't mind a steeper hike, there's a nice takeoff for early east takeoff. You can take off in the morning towards the east. There's some takeoffs down here, again, hike and flies. Down there, there's some nice, because really the area is quite wild. I mean, for official takeoffs, even Chabre, you need a shuttle to go up. And then if you bomb out by yourself, it's a plateau where you land. So it's not that easy to get out there if you don't have a retrieve driver. So it's quite where Monclar, you'll have a ski lift on weekends, so you can get up there easily. There's another place here, Saint Vincent, that you can park your car on top, fly around and land near your car. There's some takeoffs on these ranges up there. There's Chabre, another, you need to drive up there, but yeah, these are sort of the top of my head. I mean, above my house, there's a takeoff there. That's a complete hike and fly, and there's no road access at all up there. And then there are several takeoffs in this ranges here, of course, for different places to fly. And even in Cederon, there's another one here. Some also hike and fly.
And
Right.
about
Thank you.
about Chabre, Kārlis, is it right to say that for a task you only take off from the south side, not from the north?
Yeah, so far we have only south. Mainly, we're considering actually this for the next event that is starting Saturday, because it's a smaller event. We'll have 64 people. And we are considering to take off north on Chabre, but with a smaller amount of people, because the takeoffs north are small and they're steep. And so there's a very limited amount how many people we can launch. But if we will try it out this week, we'll see. But with 80 people, 90 people, it's going to be more tricky to organize it. For that, Cederon is better. It's a big, large takeoff. It's flyable and it's taskable. That's the two different worlds in a competition organization. You need to consider that there's a lot more people and they all want to take off in time to not miss the start and all that. But normally, so far, every event we ever run in Chabre, we only take off south. We never have taken off north, even though Chabre is perfectly flyable with north. There's no issue, but not for competitions, too many people. The hang gliders do it regularly, but they usually are 55, 60 people max, hang glider events. And so they take off north quite often in Chabre. We haven't. Chabre Open, the different organizers also doesn't take off north on Chabre. They are usually 120 people, 125. It's just too many people to launch north.
Any question? Des questions? Zijn er vragen? No, it's okay. A quick talk about airspace, Kārlis?
Yeah. I'm gonna share another screen. So I've been busy. Created a little tool for you. Well, for anybody who's gonna fly a competition in Chabre. This is publicly available. It's a chabreclub.fr. And you can click around. Oh no, I need a different screen. Which one is it? This one. You can click around. And it takes airspaces off. I'm clicking on small ones, so you can't. Well, let's click on that. So when you move around the mouse, you can see which is which, and you have description of every airspace, comp limit. You can take it off and on, and you have real airspace limits and competition limits. So we're gonna have buffers from the real airspaces to what you're allowed to fly in competition, so you don't cross the real airspace. And there's also a turn point layout map here. So you can click on each turn point and see their code and altitude, and you can play with this. It's publicly available. You can download the airspace file directly from the web page. It just downloads on the browser, and you can download all the turn point files for whichever instrument you want for the competition. So whenever you're in the comp and you're not sure which is which, you can always come back to this and choose the airspace you want to understand which is which. And the reason I created this, the backstory of airspaces, is that we had an event held here, and on one of their tasks, where I just showed you on the map the westerly takeoffs, they ran a task from there towards camping. And they set up an airspace buffer at 185 meters, meaning that competition limit was at certain height and the real airspace started roughly 185 meters above. And then during that task, 70 pilots crossed the buffer zone so penalties. And penalties for airspace in competitions are very simple. If you enter 1 meter, you get... Eric's microphone is on. Thank you, Eric. So the rule for airspaces in competitions is simple. For the buffer zone, if you enter it 1 meter, 1% of your points are gone. So that's you go 100 meters inside of it, 0 for the day. That's for the buffer zone. And so 70 people went in, got their penalties, but about 25 people of them went into real airspace. And I'm saying about because it's based on flight levels, and we measure our altitudes in meters above sea level in GPS. So the flight levels are based on atmospheric pressure. So we have, depending on day's pressure, the actual altitude of airspace goes up or down. So that's why we put buffers to be clear from it. And in our, the only airspace that is less than 400 meters is the military one, because the buffer zone there is 285 meters, roughly, again, because it's a flight level, and rest of the airspace is all the blue ones you see there is 400 meters or more as a buffer zone. So that's not a real airspace. You still get the penalty if you go in there, but and the reason we created it is because from the 70, the 25 of them went into real airspace, and they still just got the penalty for the day. But one of the persons was leading the event and got 0 for the day, went in a real airspace, still got on the podium as a 3rd place, and we as a community gave that person a trophy. And if anybody ever in France here, where I live here, so for me it's the French part, and I really like Chabre, and I wouldn't want it to be closed. But if ever any official governing body looks into this and sees that not only we do nothing about people crossing real airspace, we also give them trophies, yeah, we can't be taken seriously that way. So we, Chabre Club, starting our event Saturday, we made stronger local rules for this, so at least Chabre Club does it correctly. So we made bigger buffers than we had before. So when buffers are simple, you go in, get your penalty for the day, and that's that. If you do it every day, there might be more serious penalties. That's something else. But if you do cross the real airspace, that's a disqualification without question. So the airspace is something we take seriously, and so I made this nice tool for you to, thanks AI. These days, that's so much simpler to do. So you can actually learn about them, understand them, where they are, what they are. We have a bunch of local sort of natural parks. They're all there. We have 2 airspaces that is strictly comp airspaces. It's airfields, so people can. So we're friendly with the local sailplane clubs, and they still like us, and we put an airspace around them so we don't fly there, land there, because there's towings happening. Yeah.
Can you just zoom on the Chabre mountain to show everybody where it is exactly?
I need satellite thing. Here. This is Chabre. That's if I click on the button, yeah. So Chabre is there.
Okay.
And this is the military airspace I was referring to, because the takeoff is one of these dots. The westerly, so the run takeoff I mentioned before, and the task was coming towards here. And so it's let me turn off the. So this one wasn't active. That wasn't a problem. It was this one, the red one. Okay. So when the task starts, you're kind of low down here, and you have a limit to go. And then once you're out of it, you have a different limit. You can go higher. And the limit that we set on this one is 2,000 meters above main sea level, and the real one is a flight level 075, which is roughly 2,285 meters, plus minus. So we have a rough 280 something meter buffer. And if FFVA recommends 200 as a buffer, and we have set, and the rest of them, there's a 400-meter buffer between us and the airspace, except the natural parks. There's a less there, but they're not aircraft. It's more not to disturb birds, but we still put 200 meters on those, so we keep clear of all of that.
And you had pilots much higher, right?
Yes. Yeah. There is a 400. The limit they put was 2,100, and they went up to 400 meters above that.
Oh.
So that's yeah. And I mean, and there's more detailed rules in the local regulations. Like one thing is that you pop an airspace. Other thing is if you're thermaling in it. That's also for buffer is not allowed. That can lead to disqualification already in a buffer zone, not even touching the real one. But what I was referring to is a straight line. It's like, yeah, you realize you stopped it, but you still got pushed in by a thermal. Or, you know, you didn't leave the thermal early enough, you got pushed in. Fine, you get the normal penalty. But if you on purpose thermal in through the buffer, yeah, I mean, that's quite clear. And all that can be seen in the track logs. So there's no, and the only way you can say otherwise is if, because what you should know is that GPS instruments, no two instruments will show you the same altitude. There is a tolerance issue, and depending on instruments, it can be up to 50 meters. So it's quite a large chunk of difference. That's why you need to have your backup instruments. And as far as we're concerned, whichever instrument shows less, that's the one we're going to go with. So if you have 5 of them, great. Find the one that has the least amount of penalty, and we'll give you that one. You know, because it's airspace is not a choice. We don't get to. There's no sort of tolerance issues or choices. You're in. You're in. Simple as that. It's simple math. There's no cloud flying is a different story. But airspace is, we don't tolerate cloud flying either, just saying, but it's harder to prove than airspaces. Airspaces are really straightforward. GPS track log has no opinion. They don't care. They just show things as they are, and we base our decisions based on that. So that's
okay.
That's something you need to be aware of everywhere you're flying. Airspaces, you need to stay out of it. There's restrictions. It's also not safe. If you are flying in Chabre in the airspace, there are Mirage there. They are on full speed and they are practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, lately we've had those big transport one with the big propellers as well, though, and they're quiet, which is surprising. But yeah, they've been practicing. I guess the situation in the world, the military is more active than ever. Locally here, I don't know, not talking about nothing else, just a local military base here.
And by the way, pilots, you see the screen, it's not complex. It's nothing to compare with Belgium, for example. So it's really easy to even remember all those stuff. But we will repeat that. Kārlis will repeat that at the safety briefing during the week and at each briefings. On the takeoff, but please.
Yeah, and also all the blue ones, they are 3,000 plus meters is comp limit, and the maximum, the difference between the limit and the top is 400 on top of it. It's plenty high. It's really just this military one that is the problem, the red one you see in the map, and we rarely go in it. It's and if you have to go west for that flight there, we rarely go there. But if you have to, at least you'll know what we are dealing with. But the rest of the flight is, I mean, this blue one, which one is it? This one, the limit is, the real airspace is 5,000 something. I think the comp limit on this one is 5,000 meters. So good luck crossing that one. And I don't think I even will penalize somebody if you do, as long as you stay under the real one, because that might be the local area's record if you ever get to 5,000 meters here. But yeah.
Do you still set up during the competition the ceiling, the ceiling at
yeah, so we're not going to change that. We're going to base it, because last year we didn't have it as clean of an airspace file. Now the whole task area has airspace file set up. So we just base it off of that. Whatever you see on the web page here is the rule for the comp. We don't need to change limit. We can't raise them. We want the buffer zone. And it really 3001 is the lowest for the rest of the task area. And we don't need more in Chabre.
Okay.
The mountains are 1,300, 1,500 meters. And you don't, and by the time you get to Asper, the limit is 5,000. Not Asper, the Pic de Bure. So it's only around Chabre itself is 3.1, and then as you go more towards Chorge, it goes up to 5. I mean, we might set up a limit if there's wind, things like that. We might put a global comp limit at something for safety, but that would be outside of the file. It would be just for the day. That's something else, but that's a safety issue.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Kārlis. Just everybody, it's quite easy stuff, fun stuff. So I've put the link to the Chabre Club airspace here. There is a lot of information, new informations, hot informations.
Yes, you have that and the Pure Track.
We'll talk about that the next session. And okay, don't hesitate to go also to the Flying Kārlis YouTube channel. There are a lot of videos there where he explains many things, and quite the same, but other as well, and XC Cross as well. So thank you very much, Kārlis. Is there any question? Last questions? Nothing? Okay.
If there are some suggestions about points we need to address in our next meeting, just let us know.
Yeah, and we suggest you use the Telegram channels for that.
Yes. Use the Telegram channels for every question you have. Even tomorrow, just send them in the Telegram question list.
If you're not yet on the Telegram channel, you should be on there. So go on the Civil website. You have a wallet link there, and in the wallet, in the communication part, you can scan or link to the Telegram channel. If you have any issue, send us a mail, a chat, or everything. We're there to help you. And last thing, we'll have our next online session in 2 weeks. Let me share that. Oh, not that. Okay. Yeah. So on the 30th of July, again, a very important coaching session. How is it about a competition day at the BBPO? And by the way, it's not only flying fast. It's a lot of different things that we will explain to you. How to prepare, how to be cool, how to talk to each other, how to get information, how to prepare instruments, make sure you get water and everything. So we really tell you it's quite important to be part of that. And we will have also the old instrument setup part, because in France, when you have a competition in France, you need to have 2 tracking devices when flying. You have one provided by the organization, so you get a FlyMaster tracker with you that will be given each day and retrieve each day. And you will need to set up your own instrument in live tracking, and we will be explaining you how to do that during that session. So please don't miss it. It's quite important. We will try to make support sessions during the week, but it's better that you get prepared. And before of that, we will send you some links, and you have also that nice website that Kārlis presented to you, where you can already get a lot of information. So we will send in the Telegram official channel the link to the online session, so that you can join for the next 2 weeks. Any question? Dirk, any comment?
No, and everything seems clear. If there are no questions, I think we did what we could. Thank you, Kārlis, for the great explanation.
Yeah, thank you.
And looking forward to meet you in Laragne.
Yes.
Me too. Can't wait. It's gonna be a fun
Bye-bye.
event.